I'm a 15-year-old girl who often feels left out in my own family, especially when I compare myself to my younger brother, Oliver, who is 14 and adopted. Oliver joined our family about 9 years ago, and it seems like he fits in better than I do. My parents sometimes joke that he looks more like them, saying he's their ideal child, but those jokes hurt me and feel serious. Our family looks like we could be in a lifestyle magazine, representing traditional beauty, a standard I don't think I meet. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as a child, and managing my weight has always been difficult. My parents controlled my eating, which made me feel like I had to sneak food sometimes, because their monitoring felt like deprivation. About 5 months ago, my health took another hit when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. This condition sometimes keeps me in a wheelchair because of the severe pain. Adjusting to this has been hard, both physically and mentally. I'm already an introvert, so I spend most of my time in my room, trying not to bother anyone. I feel very lonely but don't want to be a burden. Despite my challenges, I've tried to keep some normalcy, like joining our annual family Christmas photo, which is a long-standing tradition. This year, however, when I got dressed and was ready to take part, my parents awkwardly suggested that the photo should only include them and Oliver. They said my wheelchair would spoil the picture. I offered to stand for a few shots, but they refused, making it clear they didn't want me included at all. Heartbroken, I went back to my room and cried, with no one checking on me. Feeling devastated, I called my grandmother and shared everything with her. She's a strong person who rebuilt her life after losing her husband. She listened to me with understanding and immediately decided to change her will. This surprised my parents and revealed deep issues in our family. What happened showed me that my family's acceptance of me is superficial and conditional. It also highlighted my grandmother's strong support for me during my toughest times, even if it caused drama. Even though their harsh words made me uncomfortable, I had come to terms with the fact that my parents' acceptance of me was conditional and probably wouldn't change. My grandmother has always been a source of strength and inspiration for me. Her unconditional love is a sharp contrast to the conditional acceptance I feel from my parents. I had hoped for a long time that they would treat me better, but that incident during Christmas reminded me that it might never happen. Every time my grandmother suggested that I could live with her, I hesitated, still holding on to the hope that my family would accept me. But that day, I finally agreed to her offer, realizing that in my own home, I was merely tolerated, not truly wanted. The pain of being excluded by my family was deep, but my grandmother was always there to support and comfort me. During our phone call, as I cried and shared my heartache, she promised to take me away as soon as she returned from her cruise. She leads an adventurous life filled with friends and laughter, which is very different from the solitude of my own room. The days leading up to her arrival were filled with silence at home. I went through my usual routine of school and isolation, while my parents and Oliver acted like everything was fine, hiding the tension beneath the surface. When my grandmother arrived, I was the one to welcome her into our home. My parents were unaware of the change that was about to happen. They greeted her casually, not realizing she knew about their exclusion of me from the family photo. When she confronted them, they were initially confused about how she knew, but soon figured out that I must have told her. Instead of apologizing, they brushed off the incident, repeating their excuses about not wanting to bother me with standing or having my wheelchair in the photo. I couldn't hold back anymore. I told them and my grandmother that their excuses were just a cover for their discomfort with including me. I pointed out how differently they treated Oliver compared to me, emphasizing that even though he was adopted, he was embraced as their own, while I, their biological daughter, was treated like an outsider. Oliver looked away, perhaps feeling guilty or recognizing the truth in what I said. My parents reacted defensively, accusing me of being dramatic and spoiled. They expected an apology from me for simply expressing the inequality and neglect I felt. They couldn't see how their actions and words were not just personal slights, but deep wounds to my sense of belonging. As painful as it was to confront these truths, my grandmother's presence gave me the strength to stand up for myself. Her unwavering support made me realize that I deserved to be in an environment where I was valued and loved unconditionally. With her, I knew I would find the acceptance and love that was so missing in my own home. I was ready to leave, not just the house, but also the conditional love that had defined my life there. My grandmother promised to take me with her, and I trusted her completely, eager for a new beginning where I could truly feel part of a family. Now that we have started to reconnect, things are gradually improving between us. The conversation with my grandmother opened my eyes to many things, including, I realized how my brother had been influenced by our parents' behavior toward me. I think he picked up on their cues without really understanding how his actions affected me. However, his willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and reach out to repair our relationship meant a lot to me in that moment. When I was ready to defend myself further, my grandmother stepped in, making it clear she was there to end the mistreatment I had endured for so long. My parents looked confused when she announced that she would be taking me to live with her. They had always made me feel like a burden, and now they didn't even try to stop me from leaving. This was a painful confirmation of what I had always felt, that they didn't truly want me as part of the family. The silence that followed my grandmother's announcement was deafening. At first, my parents seemed indifferent, but their true feelings came out when she said she was cutting them out of her will. Suddenly, they scrambled to defend their position, revealing just how materialistic they were. My grandmother had built a successful grocery store business and had accumulated considerable wealth, but I had never cared about that. I loved her for who she was, not for what she had. Unlike my parents, my love for her was unconditional. She showed my parents the revised will, making it clear that everything would now go to Oliver and me. The drama escalated as they pleaded and bargained with her, but my grandmother was unmoved by their tears. She instructed me to pack my things and get ready to leave with her immediately. I was prepared for this moment, knowing that living with her would be a healthier environment for me. As I gathered my belongings, my parents continued their desperate pleas, but Oliver was the only one who seemed to genuinely care about saying goodbye. Driving away from that house felt liberating but bittersweet. I was leaving behind painful memories, but I was also moving toward a new chapter of my life, one filled with real love and support from my grandmother. Living with her has brought so much peace to my life. Being closer to school allows me to get more sleep and feel less stressed in the mornings. Every day feels like a step toward healing. Shortly after I left, Oliver sent me a message. He apologized for his past behavior and thanked me for always treating him like a true brother. He recognized how much better his life was because of our parents' decision to adopt him and was eager to repair our bond. We started spending time together at school to strengthen our relationship. These changes weren't easy, but they were necessary. The truth had been painful, but it also set me free. With my grandmother's support and a renewed relationship with Oliver, I finally started to feel like I belonged to a family that truly cared about me. Meanwhile, Oliver had always been treated as a full member of the family, especially by our parents. Recently, during one of our casual hangouts, Oliver mentioned something that had been weighing heavily on me. We were chatting, and I couldn't help but ask about what was happening back at the house. He shared that tensions were high between our parents since I moved out, and they had been caught up in a blame game. My mom accused my dad of being the reason I felt pushed away for so long, especially pointing to his suggestion to exclude me from the family Christmas photo. On the other hand, my dad argued that my mom always overreacted to challenges, making it seem like having me as a child was the hardest thing she had ever faced. Oliver casually mentioned that he was worried they might end up getting divorced because of how things were between them. Although he made this comment in passing, it stuck with me and left me feeling uneasy. I know it's irrational, but part of me can't shake the feeling that if they do get divorced, it would somehow be my fault. Maybe I overreacted by being hurt about the photo incident, and perhaps they never meant to make me feel like a burden. These thoughts are hard to shake, and I find myself stuck in a loop of self-blame and regret. Even though I know deep down that their marital problems are not my responsibility, it's difficult not to feel like a doormat for thinking this way. That's why I'm turning to this community for some objective reassurance. To provide some context for those who are curious, my grandmother recently changed her will to leave everything to Oliver and me, mainly because of how our parents mishandled things with me. Oliver hadn't been part of the negative behavior, and at his young age, my grandmother and I both feel he deserves a chance to make up for any past mistakes. It wouldn't be fair to push him away because of our parents' actions. If we did, we'd be no different from them. People have also asked about Oliver's background. His biological mother was only 17 when she had him and had to leave college because of her pregnancy and struggles with substance abuse. His father was mostly absent, only appearing sporadically in his life. Oliver's maternal grandparents tried to help their daughter become a better mother, but eventually encouraged her to consider adoption when Oliver was 7, believing it would give him a better future. My parents were already thinking about adoption due to complications from my mother's first pregnancy and didn't want to risk going through that again. They knew Oliver's biological mother's cousin from college, which is how they found out about his situation. They fostered him for a while before officially adopting him. Oliver has stayed in touch with his grandparents, meeting them monthly, but he hasn't had contact with his parents since the adoption. His mother finds it too painful to see him, and his father has completely disappeared from his life. Navigating these complex family relationships has been challenging, but talking about these issues here helps me process my feelings and hopefully gain some clarity and support from others who might have similar experiences. Recently, my parents' sudden apology felt insincere and seemed more about wanting to fix their image before I left for college. It felt like an attempt to smooth things over without addressing the real issues that caused the rift in the first place. In the past, I made some comments in frustration about Oliver being adopted during a heated argument, which I regret. I've apologized to him because he means the world to me, and I never wanted him to feel like he was any less a part of our family. I've always seen Oliver as my brother, not just because we were raised together, but because I genuinely care for him. Despite the rocky phases we've experienced, I'm committed to maintaining a strong relationship with him. We've been through a lot because of our parents' behavior, and I refuse to let that drive a wedge between us. I even offered Oliver the option to come and live with me and our grandmother if things at home become unbearable. The idea isn't to pull him away from our parents, but to provide him with a safe and peaceful alternative if he needs it. In my recent updates, I've been overwhelmed by the support from this community. It's been reassuring to hear from others who've been in similar situations, and it has helped me feel less isolated after discussing everything with my grandmother. My grandmother reminded me that I wasn't responsible for my parents' marital issues. She explained that my parents were directing their frustrations at each other because they no longer had me to focus on. Their problems weren't caused by me standing up for myself, but by their inability to handle their issues constructively. If they do end up divorcing, it would be sad, but it's not my burden to carry. Oliver and I have talked about this too. He reassured me that he didn't mean to make me feel guilty about their problems. He was just answering my question. Recently, my parents visited unexpectedly to discuss our strained relationship. They took time off work to talk, but it wasn't a great day for me, and I wasn't in the right headspace to engage with them. They expressed a desire to spend time with me before I head off to college and attempted an apology, but it felt like they were saying they were sorry I felt offended rather than recognizing that their actions were hurtful. This wording didn't sit well with me. It felt like they were avoiding the real issue. I suggested they write their thoughts in an email or come back another time when I was more prepared to talk. I needed space to process, and rushing a conversation wasn't going to solve anything. Some might think I was avoiding the issue, but I needed to manage the situation on my own terms, especially given the emotional toll their behavior had on me. Oliver understands my stance and supports my decision. We promised each other not to let family disputes affect our bond, regardless of what happens with our parents. We are committed to supporting each other and ensuring that the challenges we face don't erode the trust and love we've rebuilt. After several challenging interactions, it's clear that my parents aren't genuinely trying to understand me or correct their past mistakes. During a recent conversation, I tried to explain that my feelings were hurt because of their actions, but instead of acknowledging this and trying to make amends, they shifted the blame to my distance for their ignorance of my struggles. This only confirmed my suspicion that they were not capable of genuine apologies and were more interested in making me feel responsible. Feeling increasingly frustrated and realizing this blame game was going nowhere, I asked them to leave. They resisted, insisting we needed to have a full discussion, as if a simple conversation could fix the deep-rooted issues between us. They seemed to think that because they provided for me, which were just basic parental responsibilities, they deserved this conversation. I couldn't engage any further without getting upset, so I decided to retreat to my room. At that point, my dad escalated the situation by demanding that I stay and talk. Thankfully, my grandmother was there to intervene. She firmly told my dad that raising his voice wasn't acceptable in her home, especially after the way they had treated me. She made it clear that if I chose not to engage, they had to respect my decision and leave. This incident was an eye-opener for both me and my parents. It showed me that their main concern was how our family problems might look to others, rather than the actual well-being of their children. They worried about appearances and feared what people might think if they knew I had moved in with my grandmother. I was beyond caring about their reputation. I was focused on my own future and healing. After they left, my grandmother and I discussed whether I wanted to see my parents again soon. For now, my answer was a definite no. She supported my decision, assuring me that she wouldn't allow them to drop by uninvited next time. I also talked to Oliver about their visit. He was surprised by their actions and mentioned that the mood at home was gloomy since their return. While I felt for him, I knew I needed to maintain my distance for my own mental health. I'll be leaving for college in a week, I got into my first choice school, and my grandmother has arranged everything for my move. She'll even stay with me for the first couple of weeks to help me settle into my new apartment. This is a big step, living on my own, but I'm ready and looking forward to the future. My mental health has improved a lot without the constant stress from my parents. Oliver and I plan to stay in close contact through FaceTime, aiming to chat at least once a week. Although I'm sad to leave my current life and the security of my grandmother's home, I'm genuinely excited about starting this new chapter.